Hello, it's another week of the Johnny and Gene show. And I have a very prominent attorney on today that I'd like to introduce, Barry Levine. Levin, excuse me. Barry. You pronounce it Levin, don't you?
It's Levin. There's no E at the end.
Yeah, Levin. And
hello, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, definitely, man. I know you are definitely a big shot attorney. I know that. So we like to...
you know what the old saying is, better it has been than it never was. So I'll take that.
Well, I'll tell guys something about you that people don't know. You're very athletic. I know that you are pretty good with your hands as a boxer. You're an athlete, I believe, a football player. Is that correct?
That's all true. Yes.
Yeah. And you aged well, so you look good still. So that's some good things going on.
Well, I'd love to talk to you guys about anything you want to talk about. You know, I give you the, having tried 26 jury trials, I can give you the other side of it from a trial lawyer's perspective, how the system, it really destroys everything and everybody, not only defendants, but even witnesses at times. So we could talk about some of my cases. We could talk about the process. You could ask me anything you want. I'm an open book.
Okay, let me ask you, let's start off here because of the content that we cover, because of the message to kids, to, guys like us or guys like myself and Gene and, some of the guys I've been talking to. Obviously, we look up to you, your profession, the direction you went in your life compared to the direction we went in our life. And, it's a positive message. I want to talk to you about some of the stuff when it comes to cooperations, to 302s, to Queen of the Day. And if you could clarify for people that don't know the law or understand the criminal system, what that stuff means.
Absolutely. Well, in the federal system where they play hardball and they play for keeps, what they will do is they'll send out a huge net. And a lot of times people get caught up in that net and get charged with criminal conduct that under ordinary circumstances, they might not necessarily be charged. I mean, one of the things that pet peeve of mine has been, I believe the feds have overused RICO dramatically in the last 10, 15 years. They make everything a RICO case. And what happens is the stakes become incredibly high for a defendant. So you're a young guy, you get caught up, you made a mistake, maybe you're involved in illegal gambling, sports betting, whatever it is. Half the country's doing it. But now you're with the wrong group of guys. You're with organized crime, so to speak. So what do the feds do? They throw you in a RICO. And now you have an outside possibility of a 20-year sentence. And the agents come to your door, and they're not shy about it. And they implicitly threaten you if you don't come on, excuse the term, Team America. Some guys do, some guys don't. And then the first step is they have you proffer. And in that proffer session, if you don't have a lawyer, they get you a lawyer. Sometimes they talk to you before you're even charged. It depends on how chatty that individual wants to be. And there is nothing you can say to a federal agent that's off the record. One of the problems is, and from my perspective, I actually wish they taped interviews, but they use, as you mentioned, John, a 302. That is the agent's rendition of what he believes he heard. And in many cases, the agents fill in blanks that they're looking for that didn't necessarily come from the mouth of the suspect or the defendant. Now, if you're a person caught up in that situation and you agree to proffer and you lie, well, they can make your life miserable. They can do everything from add a 1001 charge, perjury, obstruction they can add, or they could keep pounding away at you till you tell them what they want to hear. Sometimes what they want to hear isn't necessarily the objective truth. And from my own experience, I've never represented a cooperator. It doesn't mean I'm adverse to it. People are people. We all get jammed up. We all got to figure our way out of our problems. I'm not passing judgment on anyone. But my biggest issue is how the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, especially in the Southern and Eastern District, handles cases. If you're a young person out there and you think that I'm going to be a street guy, it's cool, I'm going to hustle some money, I look up to the guy with the pinky ring on the corner who drives a brand new, years ago was a Cadillac, now it's a Mercedes. No, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. First of all, the street will eat you up alive. And if they don't eat you up alive, the government's going to eat you up alive. I see Gene's nodding, so I must be saying I must be hitting some nerves.
Absolutely, man. When they come, listen, they don't understand. When they come, it's over. I mean, if you're committing, especially violent crimes, nine out of 10 times, their guidelines, I try to explain to these kids, are much different than regular state guidelines. When you start shooting people and robbing people for the mob or whatever you're doing, these crimes become, guidelines become 20s and 30s and, you know.
Well, excuse me.
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Well, when you got the United States of America on the top of a piece of paper going against a defendant of John Doe, when you see United States of America, you know you have a problem, because you're talking about a powerful entity government that is coming after you. You're a lone wolf being the chance of being persecuted for, like you said, a RICO case, which, you know, we just did the film Fear City on Netflix, 3-part series discussing exactly that, the power of RICO and the power of the United States government coming after you. But I wanted to ask you specifically a question. Why would a defendant go in and talk to somebody for Queen of the Day? What is their benefit of Queen of the Day? Why would they go in and do that?
Well, you know, depending on whose perspective you're asking. From my perspective, you don't do that.
Why not?
However, well, because they will twist and turn it. I'm not telling someone not to cooperate, but if you're going to cooperate, the right way to do it is have your lawyer substantially debrief you first, make sure you, not meaning either one of you individually, but anybody, has the whole story. So when the government starts to pound at you and they try to get you to talk about things you don't necessarily know or you weren't necessarily involved with, that you can lock them, you can stop them. So before I would ever tell a client to go for a profit session, a Queen for a Day,
which is cooperating.
I'm sorry?
Which is cooperating if they're working as Queen for the Day. Okay.
Well, the worst thing you can do is go in and profit and then renege, because they are incredibly vindictive, more so than your ex-girlfriend or your ex-wife. They will kill you. They will spend their life destroying you. And you get boxed in.
Hey, Barry, 1 second. I want to say something. You're right, because if you decide to sit with them and you make a deal and then they don't end up using you, because it's not guaranteed they use you after you proffer. If you're not a high-profile witness, whatever you want to say, they could still go out and investigate those crimes that you gave them, but not use the information that they got from you, but they could still try to get the crimes without you now, right? Isn't that correct? They can
use the information indirectly. As a matter of fact, if you read the fine print on the proffer agreements, they are allowed to use it against you at sentencing. They're allowed to use it against you and to further their investigation. The only thing they cannot do is introduce it on their direct case at trial.
Right.
And if you're foolish enough to take the stand after proffering, they can cross you on it.
Right. Everything you said.
It's not immunity the way one thinks they get immunity to go to the grand jury. It really is something that is an enormous benefit to the government and little or no benefit to a nervous young guy that doesn't know what he got himself involved with. And the problem with my profession, lawyers can be, they can fight a great case on the telephone to get a retainer. But most guys don't want to get in the trenches and fight the feds. Because, as you said, Gene, it's apples and oranges. It's one thing to go pick 12 in Queens Supreme and take on some young assistant who can't even go in the courtroom.
And Barry, I wanted to say, what's so funny is that if I was just explaining this to somebody else. For me, if I shot a guy in the state in his ass, right? I shot him below the belt. It's 3-4 years, maybe 5 years max. Now, Tony the Wrench or whatever so-and-so sends me to shoot a guy, it's 20 years, and it can be below the belt. So it's crazy.
And not only is it 20 years, but if they can figure out how to use that act and link it to other people, they'll come up with 7 more charges for you.
Right.
Well, Barry, you handled a lot of obviously high-profile white-collar cases, high-profile mafia gangster cases. And in our life, as a gangster, if you proffer, if you go in for Queen of the Day, it's a death sentence to us. And that's our laws, our regulations as gangsters. If we sit in on those profits, those queen of the days in that sense. As an attorney, how do you balance that? To tell your client, go in, don't go in, you're leaving yourself open maybe to get away from something with the government, but you're putting yourself as a chopping block as a gangster where you're putting a bullseye on your head to be killed.
Well, let me start my answer this way. First of all, I'm at 62, 35 years in the game. I'm closing in on 1,000 cases.
Wow.
But with that said, maybe 25 of the 1,000 were organized crime. I've done white collar. I do construction fraud. I've done stock fraud. I've done hedge fund cases. I've done it all.
Right.
I can say this with complete confidence that the feds treat traditional OC 1,000 times worse than the guy that steals on the phone and takes your grandmother's life savings.
Absolutely.
So
that's for sure. The Eastern District is built off of that. I mean, pretty much.
But why is that? Why would you, in your opinion, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's several factors. One of which is everybody in life goes to the easiest place to get a feather in their cap. And going back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover in the 70s, and then when Blakely wrote the RICO manual, it's now a cookie cutter operation for the feds. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right. I mean, their indictments are literally cut and paste jobs today. My favorite is, and I don't know if either one of you are charged in it or involved in it, is they have a new theme now to broaden the East Coast Mafia. They used to name the 5 families. In the last 3 years, when they indict, they call it the East Coast Mafia, which, by the way, there is no such thing. There might be business arrangements between guys in Florida and New York and Philadelphia, but there is no East Coast Mafia as that term was used for years. Now, why do they do that? So they can bring in informants who may never know the defendant, who never sat down with them, who never had a conversation.
But dealt with other people.
Third-party hearsay, and they'll let them testify, and they'll call it a co-conspirator statement. So, as I said earlier, they cast the net very broadly. But getting back to John's question of whether, or how, I should say, I would counsel someone that wants to go in for a queen for a day. If a person came to me and said they wanted to do that, I would tell them, number one, you're going to do it here first. And I'd want to take him through he or she through their entire life. 2, I would assess their credibility while they're talking to me. Not because I want to judge them or hurt them, but I know what's waiting for them on the other side of the room. 3, they have to be prepared to go all the way. If you're not prepared to go all the way, and what I mean by that is jump when you're called, allow yourself to be used by multiple agencies, go to the grand jury, be prepared to testify at trial, be prepared to be called by other U.S. attorneys' offices if they deem your information relevant to another case. You basically are their slave till they're done with you. And you have no ability whatsoever to say, I don't want to play anymore. Because if you do that, you're going to get hurt.
So it's a major, major move to go in and cooperate and go in as queen of the day, because you're leaving yourself completely exposed, basically as a prostitute for the government. Yeah.
And then years ago, as both you guys know, well, Gene, you're kind of young, but John and I are closer in age.
I'm pretty young too.
Years ago, you ran the risk of getting shot afterward.
You're right.
Because the number one thing with wise guys was they hated rats, they were going to kill rats. But the reality of the situation is...
Except they're all ratting.
Okay, I agree. Listen.
Huh? Yeah. I mean, you got the top guys going, it's like...
Listen, you tell me.
Yeah.
I was involved with Messino's cases.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. The whole family told, yeah.
Can you talk about any of the Joe Messina's cases? For the people that don't know, Joe Messina was the boss of the Bonanno family, for the people out there that don't know. Go ahead. Sorry, Pat.
I ended up representing 2 people in that group of individuals. Robert Lino, who did not cooperate and really stood up like a man. He took a heavy sentence, 21 years. He had 3 homicides. And we were one of the co-defendants with Joe Messina. And I think in 2003 or 2004, Robert decided to plead guilty. We went over all his options. Had he been convicted at trial, he would have had 3 life sentences.
Right.
And I had the honor of meeting the great Greg Andres at that point. He was the first time
I remember Greg. Yeah.
Yeah. Greg and I had some wars over the years. And Robert went off and he took the time. But while representing Robert, I spent a lot of time in co-defendant meetings in the MDC. And that the best part of that case was when it started, there were 16 guys with 16 lawyers cramped in the attorney's conference room.
Oh, I know. It went down to about 2 guys in there.
Yeah. And you would watch them drop like flies every week. Every week, another guy disappeared. And
listen, when those murders start coming, it's different. It's different when you get in charge of murder, Barry. Come on, man.
I'm not on.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Barry, I don't know if you're aware of, I'm the one that gave Joe Messina the information that Frankie Copa was going out and cooperating out of Fort Dix. Yeah. And so, the exposure back when Joe was going to go, I knew that there was going to be, obviously, I was going to be involved in this stuff with some of these guys flipping and going, and Sal Vitale, and obviously animosity towards Joe, but Joe didn't tip him that he was warned about Frankie going, and they were exposed to the triple homicide and some other things, obviously. But you know more than anybody.
Joe didn't go bad till after he blew trial.
Right. Well, everyone felt that I was this close to being part of his trial team.
Right.
But Breitbart, who in his day was a great lawyer, I don't think he wanted me involved. And then there's always the issue with Joe getting paid. And it's hard to get me to move if I'm not retained. But just as an aside, you'd have these meetings that went on for about a year and a half. And Joe had David Breitbart, he had I was in there with Frankie, he had a ton of lawyers. John Mitchell was in the case for Vitale. And you'd have these meetings. And then Joe would hire a lawyer, and I'm not going to mention his name, and his job was to buy as many chicken cutlet sandwiches from the machine as possible. And feed everybody.
Hey, can I ask you a question? How
Sure.
in shock were people when Joe went bad? I mean, you were on the case. Was people just like, because we were in the street. I'm saying, what was it like with the guys that were actually his skippers and everything? Were they just like what was it?
Well, his skippers, with the exception of my client, Vinny Bassiano, were all rats.
Yeah,
they already went bad.
Everybody was right. I think it was 14
right.
guys, right?
Yeah. No, but Joe brought in a lot of
Barry-
guys.
Yeah, but 14 flipped with him.
Right,
They all
right,
flipped the whole
right.
regime. And the thing, Barry, that was really unique is, and I think he started presidents with, with different guys, and I won't mention names, that they were starting to go to trial knowing, even though they were cooperating prior, went to trial, if they blow trial, they just come back in and continue cooperating like Joe Messina. And it was something that was like, hey, I got nothing to lose here. I flip a coin. If I could stop cooperating, go to trial. And if I get beat it, I walk out and, I'll take off. If I don't, I just walk in the back door like Joe did and continue my cooperation.
You got to have the goods. You
Well,
can't,
he had the goods.
Yeah,
He's the boss.
exactly. Yeah, right.
Well, from the defense bar's point of view, and I think I was quoted in a couple articles when Joe went bad, I referred to Joe as the last of the Mohicans.
Right.
I knew Joe for about 5 years. And I mean, this was a guy, regardless of how Machiavellian he was, because we all know they're all Machiavellian, all these monsters are. Joe would clip a guy if he even smelt that he was going to cooperate.
Right.
And for him to have literally not only the verdict came in, he went upstairs at 12 o'clock, and at 1:15 he was on the phone with the FBI.
Wow.
He had an agenda.
Yeah.
And then you take his conduct even further. He wore a wire against my client while they were incarcerated together for 9 months.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, whatever we did, it is what it is. He had no business cooperating. I'm just going to say that. I know I'm going to hear about that. A guy like that statue should not be cooperating. I'm sorry, man.
Well, you know what? I'll make it even worse. Whether he chose to cooperate or not, that's a moral decision on his part.
Right.
I'm not judging him.
Right.
I judge the government. You know why? Because Joe Messina is probably responsible for between 13 and 20 murders.
I think it's like 18. Yeah, 18 murders, something like that. Right.
18?
Yeah.
Some of those murders were horrendous. He killed people to take over their cockroach route to sell hamburgers.
But Barry, I don't mean to cut you off, but the problem is with these guys, they kill, but they're not doing the killing. They're getting guys like me to do the killing.
Right.
And so it's easy to kill when you're getting me to do all the work. So it made it very easy for these guys to be gangsters. And you see what happens. After they cooperate, they take off and they hide in another country, another city.
Right.
Because they're not really capable of doing this work. And this is what I'm trying to teach kids. Don't be that next man sucker.
No, because not only are you risking your own life, you're risking, if you're married and you have kids, you're ruining their lives. You're not going to get the help and the promise and the friendship that they tell you have. You get nothing.
You're not going to get that even if you don't cooperate. They're still going to dog you out. You know how that goes.
I agree.
Both ways.
That's what I'm talking about. You're destroying your life no matter what you do.
Right.
So to John's point, don't get involved in the first place.
Right.
Well, you get guys like your son, Barry, and I don't want to talk about families, where you're raising your son the way most fathers want to raise their family. You know, go to work, go to school, be a good citizen, whatever career, whether you're going to drive a truck. That's the honorable life. And that's the answer to these kids, whether you don't like education or college, if it's not for you. But a good life is, you know, a way you're going to enjoy your life, at least, with some hard work and moving forward, not living this treacherous, backstabbing Machiavelli life that we're just talking about.
Right. And they give a guy like Joe Messino a deal because it just shows everybody. It's more of a statement when they make him cool. They don't want to give him a deal, really. They just want to give him a deal just to show, like, this life is over. The big Don, Joe, you can't even say his name, you had to touch your ear, is cooperating. You know what I'm saying? The ear is cooperating.
But look at the incentive to cooperate, because look what they let Joe do. Joe's home.
Right. He's been home.
Joe's in Howard Beach at the bakery at 6 a.m. getting his rolls again. But look at the deal the government makes with these guys. Yes, he paid a couple $1 million.
That he cried about, still cries about. Yeah, yeah.
Kept all his real estate, kept all his apartment buildings, collects his rents. He's a very wealthy man. And a lot of look what they did for Sammy the Bull. And he fucked up his whole life. Right. I mean, that man should be doing 3 life sentences at a minimum. They gave him, what, 5 years? He goes off to Arizona. He gets involved in a drug ring with young kids. He keeps all his money, and the government bends over backwards. I mean, the government, if you have value to them, they will prostitute you till the nth degree. No questions asked. And that's my personal, from a lawyer's point of view, that's where I have a bone to pick with the FBI and the agents, how they handle these things.
Well, they have cases, Barry, like my case, right? 54 guys came in and testified against me. They don't have one piece of physical evidence. It was just mob guys, informants, third-party testimony like you're talking about, that walked in, no videotape, no audio tapes, never caught at crime scenes. And I got banged all over the place with, RICO case and a ton of murders and shootings. And that's the way the system's built to break down an organization.
No, absolutely. I mean, but in the same token, you can beat them. But in order to beat them, the client has to want to work as hard as the lawyer. I've had some great clients too in my career. And I mean, I'll give you an example. I can go back to my first organized crime trial, which was Ali Persco. Mm-hmm. He had 13 cooperating witnesses against him. Only 2 knew him.
Wow. What about my old boss, Vinny Asaro? How do you beat that case?
I don't know anything about Vinny Asaro. I just know his name. I have nothing to do with it.
The Latanza case.
Oh, you're talking about the old man?
Yeah. How do you beat that case?
I think he had 2 cute girls that made the jury.
Hey, whatever works. What was one of your, if you could talk about it, what was one of your, it didn't have to be the most notoriety of a case that you handled, but what was one of your favorite cases in your career that you think that's something that you really enjoyed working with, or a case that you beat that you could talk about?
I actually liked all my federal trials because it's like, I love it. I love that battle. And I'm prepared, if the client is prepared to give me what I want, to work 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day.
That's why you're a great athlete. You like the competition.
I would say my first one with Ali was great. He was a sharp guy. He helped prepare his own case. He did a lot of the tapes. I did all the review of the 302s. We did an investigation. We went out to, I think it was Minnesota at the time. Scarpa was dying. The government was lying to our face in court, saying he's 160 pounds. Don't worry about it. He's okay. If you want to subpoena him, he's okay. He didn't know that we interviewed Scarpa 2 weeks earlier and he was 114 pounds and he was going to die in a week. And we already took Scarpa's deathbed affidavit. That's how I got the acquittal.
Right.
Scarpa came forward at the end. You talk about Machiavelli double-dealing mob bosses.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He killed everybody, robbed his bosses, set up Carmine Persico for crimes he didn't even commit. And on top of that, was taking money from the FBI and feeding them information that was materially false and misleading.
So you don't think the mafia is treacherous then?
They're all treacherous.
You just said it all. You just checkmated everybody with that chest.
But, you know, honesty is a rare quality in the world we live in.
All right.
Yeah, you're right.
But that was a big case for me. I enjoyed it. It was also my first case, so I think I was 32 years old at the time. And yeah, I'm not going to say like my ego didn't go through the roof after that. And he was acquitted and he went home. And another case I had a lot of fun with was Vinny. Vinny Bassiano and I got along. He was a charismatic guy, batshit crazy, but charismatic. And in his case, I cross-examined 23 Bonanno informants.
Wow.
And we ended up hanging the jury on the murder. We beat all the extortions. He got convicted of gambling conspiracy under RICO. And then, of course, they retried him 2 more times for the other murders. I wasn't his lawyer, and he was convicted. Not saying I would have won the second and third trials because it's much easier for the government to fix their mistakes.
Well, they had wiretaps the second time. Didn't they have wiretaps on the murders? I remember he told somebody, we got our real life Lou Cabrazzi. I know that wiretap. I know the person. Right.
But then they also had the Joe tapes.
Right.
Yeah, Joe got him.
Well, he said, I have the real life Lou Cabrazzi working for us. He kills for the family. I know that was the very,
Those tapes were made, but they weren't ready in time for my trial.
Right.
I actually was hoping he'd hire me for the retrial. He said he was. And I wanted to cross-examine Joe in the worst way. I mean, I cross-examined his buddy. What the hell is the guy's name? Dominic Sicali. Oh. That was a treat.
Yeah, Dominic did time with me in a regular joints in '96, I believe. We were in jail together. And I know later on he got tangled up. Years later when he gets out, he gets tangled up. He was very close with Vinny at one time. I think he was pretty good friends with him at one time on the street. And I guess he ends up coming in against Vinny later on. And you cross-examined him?
Yeah, and ironically, you talk about flipping. Dominic was sitting next to us 3 weeks before trial. Wow. His lawyer and I, we were all together preparing our defenses. 3 weeks before jury selection, he flipped. He got on the witness stand, and he was probably more beneficial to me on the murder count than anyone else because what comes to mind is he gets on the stand and talks about.
Is this the guy they shot on the stoop?
Yeah, Santoro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He gets on the stand. He's prepped by the government. We knew they were lying. And when I say they were lying, the agents were lying. That's right, fellas. If you're watching this, I'm still talking shit about you 35 years. And here's the lie. And this shows you how even they don't prepare a case. They wanted to talk about how Dominic and Vinny would surveil the victim and how they would park around the block from the victim's home and that they would be able to see through the other backyard and watch the guy come and go, walk his dog, what time he leaves in the morning, what time he comes back. The problem with that testimony is they prepped him for the testimony 2 years after the murder. At the time of the murder, the property behind the decedent's house was all woods. It got torn down after he was killed.
Wow.
And they built another home, and then you could see through. And we realized that, and Vinny was helpful. He gave us the background. I sent my investigator down to the building department of the city of New York. We got the building plans. We called our own witnesses. I put on the building inspector, and that was the end of Dominic's lie.
Was that the Eastern District case, Barry? Was that?
Yeah, yes, Brooklyn, Judge Garifas.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you as an ex-Bonanno guy, these guys are not all lying. I can tell you that though. A lot of these murders are being ordered. I can tell you that.
No, listen, I'm not saying. Listen, I'm
No,
not
I know.
saying.
I know what you're saying, but them words might get twisted. But Vinny Gorgeous was ruthless.
But also you got to remember, Barry, you're not the typical lawyer. You're a top attorney in this country.
Yeah.
You're a little above, head and shoulders above a lot of these guys, whether you admit that or not, because you're going to be a little humble here. But you have a reputation of being one of the best attorneys, not just in mob cases. You've handled a lot of white collar cases and different cases. You're pretty well known and versed in the criminal field itself. And most attorneys don't have your background or ability to fight these cases the way you do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, John.
Yeah.
I just to follow up on Gene's point. I'm not saying Vinny's innocent or guilty, but here's the point.
Yeah.
The point is a simple one.
They did it the wrong way. I know what you're saying. Right.
Big lie.
Yeah.
That's a big lie.
Right.
Now you're giving me something to
It gives you ammo. I know. Right. You're usually looking for any ammo. I know how it goes. But I also wanted to ask you something because I noticed nowadays a lot of these attorneys defending the mob guys are getting the mob guys in trouble by things that they say in court. I've been noticing this a lot, like things they don't realize that in the mafia protocol you can't say, and the people that you're defending don't realize it, and they're actually getting shelved now a lot by what lawyers are saying. Just little words. It's happening a lot, I notice. A lot of lawyers,
I think what you're getting at is some individuals, and I know exactly what you're talking about, get upset. And this goes back to the days of John Gotti. You know,
Right.
you can't take a plea because you can't admit. I mean, I had that personal experience myself in a case. We can talk about it. You can't admit to the existence of this. You can't admit to that. But the reality is the government will put so much pressure on you. Or the judge. I dealt with Judge Rena Raggi a couple times, and she would not accept a plea from anyone unless they admitted their membership.
Admitted his position in the mob. I mean, in our rules, though, you're a rat. If you admit to the existence of the mafia, and if you admit to a position in the mafia, and for the people that don't know why, because it helps them to convict other people in a new RICO case. It shows that there's an organization. Although that's been well established now over the years because of so many informants, which we all know.
But do they tell you, like, listen, don't say this, don't say that? Because I know previously guys have just got shelved for statements that their lawyer had made that were actually part of my family, my old family. So I'm saying, is this what's going on now? Because where do you like cross the line? Like, what is the guy supposed to do? I feel like you're in a no-win situation. You're taking your time, but you said the wrong word. So you took your time, but you're shelved now. So what's the point?
I get your point.
Right.
I can only speak for myself. I'm an outlier. I do what I want.
Right.
But I'm not saying that to be an egotistical putz. I do what I want. What's best for the client.
Right.
Yeah. To save his life. You're doing
That's really, I'm one-dimensional that way. I'm not a guy that wants to, after I win the case, go down to 18th Avenue and go to the social club and hang out and go with them to the track and bet on Saturday. That ain't me.
Right.
Well, that was Bruce Cutler, and I like Bruce, actually, and he ruined his career after doing this. I mean, you know, he was a good lawyer, I thought, decent. But when you behave that way and you forget that you're an attorney, not a gangster, it's going to be end of your career in the legal field, and you're going to lose respect on both sides. Actually,
the government looks for weakness wherever they can find it, and what they will do is they disqualify you. On the other hand, if you play ball with them, they love for you to be the defense lawyer because they know they're going to win and they're going to win big. I mean, I had a result like Bruce. I mean, after 2 wins for Ali Persico, they subpoenaed me to a grand jury when they were investigating a homicide. I was done at that point. What did I know about the homicide?
Right.
You know, what was I carrying the shovel in Riverhead? But, you know, that's how they got rid of me.
Right.
And go move to quash the subpoena, which of course we did. Judge looks at you like you got 3 heads. And, you know, you go into court and you're arguing, Judge, U.S. v. Nixon, the famous case. This is a fishing expedition. It's being done for invalid purposes. It's to prejudice my client. That's right, Mr. Levin. You're right, Mr. Levin. I see your point. Get in the grand jury in 2 hours. Yeah. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's a rigged system. And the only chance an individual has in an organized crime case to fight a case is to, one, hope there's no direct link to his criminal conduct, and two, to have the right defense team. And now something else I'll tell you. I mean, I'm going to piss off some of your audience right now. There's a few guys I like out there. I'm talking lawyers now.
Yeah.
But the profession's pathetic. You know, I was a rookie when you had icons in the business. Gus Newman, Jimmy LaRosa, Jerry Shogell. I mean, these guys were not only tremendous intellects, but they had the ability to go before a jury and come off so credible that their client went home.
Well, Shogell's a gentleman. He carries himself like a gentleman. I know him personally. How about Pollock? What happened to Pollock? Do you remember Pollock? He used to handle Angelo Ruggiero's cases years ago.
Yeah,
he handled one of my brother-in-laws.
I didn't have a lot of personal interaction with him. I think he retired and went to Florida. I mean, you know, we're talking about guys now that are all either approaching 80 or over 80.
Yeah, yeah.
But the new breed that's out there today, half of them would rather have a sports book than a law practice.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a different era, different time. How about Slotnick? What happened to Barry?
Barry's up in Westchester. He's in his mid-80s. He's, I think, long retired. He actually handed the baton off to me in Persico. He was Persico's trial lawyer, got disqualified. And they brought me on. Back then, I was not a name in that type of work. I was basically a state defense lawyer out of Queens,
right,
hustling, trying little cases. And he was, I got to say, tremendously gracious to me when I got the acquittal. Total gentleman.
You said you were in Queens?
I spent from 1985 to 1990 in Queens. That's where I started.
Was Judge Wong there yet? The Chinese guy, Judge Wong, was he there yet?
Well, there was Judge Ang, who was an Asian judge.
Judge Wong. No, he was ruthless. I just want to know if you were there. All right. Okay. All right.
No, I never came across him. I tried like 15. I'll show you how bad the Queens DA's office is.
Oh, no, Queens is bad. Queens is bad.
Yeah, but I tried 15 jury trials in Queens. The first one was the first one to get publicity was the St. John sex abuse case back in the day. We got acquittals across the board. I literally, in Queens, ran off 6 acquittals in a row. And you didn't have to be a great lawyer.
He probably doesn't remember that. He's too young for the St. John's case. But actually, they subpoenaed my sister to come in as a juror, and she used me and said I can't be a juror because, you know, so she was eliminated. But I remember the case well, actually. That was a big case for you.
Queens is so...
That was my first case where I got publicity. Yeah. But the point being is, when you went into Queens to try a case, there were some great homicide prosecutors, but they were few and far between. I mean, I tried loan sharking cases in Queens, got acquittals. I tried robberies. Clients that should have got 10 years went home to rob again. I mean, I had a busy life.
How about white collar? Do you have any specific that you liked out of the white collar that rings a bell that you like to discuss?
I had, I'm going back quite a ways. I did the AmeriCorp Securities case back in the day. I'm going back to like 89, 90. And they were the market makers for Jordan Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you guys, if you want a funny story that has nothing to do with being a lawyer, just about characters in the world of criminality.
Well, you had Greg Emilius, right? You remember Emilius? Greg, he got shot in the head recently, a couple of years back out in Huntington. Him and my cousin, Greg Hasho, bought J.P. Moran. They were partners, and so they were involved in that same era of when you're talking about. With
the money those guys made put organized crime to shame.
Oh, yeah. My brother worked with them. He's one of the managers. These guys were bringing all kinds of money in those days. So, you know, yeah, it was crazy.
I also represented 2 brokers at Jordan Belfort's firm. And before the criminal cases got underway, NASDAQ and the SEC comes in with the civil division. And this is how they set up the criminal cases. So they subpoenaed all these people to come down for depositions. And I must have been pretty naive. I was 28, 29 years old. I figured you take this shit seriously. You know, you prep your client, you see where they're coming from, you see what you can object to. So they paid me a handsome fee. And I was given this client who had to appear in a series of depositions from the civil division. So we talk. I agree to fly down on the shuttle. They go down the night before, and everything starts the following morning. So I get down there. They put me in the Mayfair Hotel. These guys are all upstairs. I call my client. Hey, Barry, come on up. We got some food. Relax. I go, well, that's great, but we got to prep for tomorrow. I'll have a drink with you at the bar. Let's prep. He goes, no, you got to come upstairs. I knocked on the door. I opened the door. Hookers all over the place. Coke all over the table. They couldn't have cared less about this place. But here's the moral of the story.
You stayed. Is that the moral of the story?
No, I didn't give you the punchline yet because this goes to your show. These guys were talking tough, and they had helicopters, and my client just bought a Ferrari, and he don't take shit from nobody. And then 2 years later, 90% of them flipped.
Over probably like 2 years, right? They didn't want.
There was a 3-year lag between the civil enforcement case and then the criminal indictments.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, when they get you good, listen, a lot of guys, you know this, and we discuss this a lot. It's easy when you're facing 10 and under not to flip. I mean,
cares.
If you're anybody, you know, if you got any kind of mud, 10 and under, you know that's not a big deal. You're going to go home. You know, most you get is at 10. You're going to do 8.5 and you're okay. But when you got 10 to life and the numbers start changing and you know you're never going to come out, or the possibility you're going to die inside with a 30, 40-year sentence, that's when these guys start to decide their fate's got to change and they rethink their loyalties. Correct?
Or like me, Barry, when I says, can I get 20? They said no. I mean, what do you say? No, you can't, no 20.
You know what the problem, don't get me wrong, if you have a homicide on your indictment that they can really prove, you know, many times the person will be charged with a homicide that they can't prove the case. Whether the person passed a message or not, that's neither here nor there. But they're bluffing too at times. But you have to have the right lawyer to know when they're bluffing. And the right lawyer is only going to know when they're bluffing if he does his homework. Yeah. And the problem today is you're not going to get a lot of lawyers that are willing to do their homework and work their tail off to develop a defense. I just beat literally months right before COVID hit, I had a client charged with a cold case homicide, RICO, one of those 40-count indictments. Matter of fact, one of your guests was one of the main witnesses on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
Which one is it?
John.
Rubio.
Oh, Rubio, okay.
And without getting into all the detail, the murder's been dismissed. The RICO's been dismissed. My client pled to 1 count of obstruction. He's facing 0 to 5.
Oh, I know who you're calling. I forgot. Okay.
So my point being is, and by the way, we hammered away at that case for 2 years, motion after motion. I had investigators on the street. For trial, I had 17 witnesses. The government had 4.
Yeah.
That's what breaks their cases down. I didn't even know. I learned something from you guys. I didn't even know your guest was turning the tapes on and off. I didn't even know that. So I learned something.
Hey, he's a character. He's got a good personality, though. I mean, I don't know the case.
I get along. I mean, I get along with him good, but how do you beat wiretaps, though, as a lawyer? How do you even defend that?
You don't. You don't.
You just try to say, oh, well, you know, he was just talking. Like, what do you say? Like, how do you go about that? I was blatantly on wiretap saying I'm going to tear the state of Florida to pieces. So how do you defend that if I something like that?
I'll be perfectly honest. I've never won a case where my client was intercepted on tapes.
Right.
I'm really good at cross-examination. I'm good at making a jury believe my story. But
right.
When I have a client on tape, I'm not going anywhere. And neither is any other lawyer.
Right.
I don't care what
they just take the money, right? That's it.
Yeah, you're going down. You're going down. When you're on it, when you are clearly on a tape.
They just need a little bit. They don't even need a lot, right?
They usually get a lot because contrary to the vow of, what do they call that? Omerta?
Yeah.
You ever go to a restaurant with a bunch of wise guys?
Yeah.
Now you'll hear about 50 murders and 25 crimes. I mean, you hear about, they all talk, it's like me talking about, you know, winning the Super Bowl or something.
This one shot this one, I got this. I know, it's just, I know, bragging.
I mean, The Apartment and The Ravenite had to be a classic because I don't think there's more tapes or spoken so outwardly or openly about major crimes like that. Is there any other case that there's anything like that? that you know of besides that?
I was
Big
involved,
wiretap case, you mean?
Yeah,
not at the length they went to.
right.
No,
Because you're discussing openly homicides.
I think they devoted like 100 agents to that case, right? Wasn't it just like something crazy where they devoted like literally a whole force to him, right? John Gotti Sr.?
Over the course of my career, I dealt with several of those agents, and they were pretty good agents. I'm not going to tell you. I mean, you know, you're hearing me give you the negative of some of these agents that I deal with, but guys like Bruce Mao and Bonaventure, those are good. Those are hardworking guys, and they played by the rules, and they knew what they were doing. I mean, they built a great case.
Yeah,
you got to give credit with
A lot of them,
credit's due.
a lot of them are nice guys, though. Some of them, they're regular guys. A lot of them are nice guys. You know, when you sit with them, they're cool guys, man. They're regular people. You know,
we're all regular people.
Right? Yeah.
And going to John's point, it's the stupidity of youth.
Right.
It's the mistakes you make when you're younger that if you don't break away by a certain time, you're doomed for life.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, look, we all, when we're teenagers, and you know, you guys are both ballsy guys, and you know, you think you're tough, and no one's saying you're not tough. But then you start thinking you're invincible because
There
get
you
away
go.
with it.
There you
get
go,
away
buddy.
with
There you go. I say it all the time. But I got ahead of myself, and that's what happens. You're right.
Everybody's luck is.
You know what I'm trying to do now, Bat? One of the things I'm trying to do while I'm working with these kids, and you know, and I'm hoping to get some ideas from attorneys like you. Now that people are open to a little more of the, you know, revamp some of the system with the criminal system and give these guys that are in prisons for different crimes different chances and opportunities, whether to go back into the armed forces if they didn't kill anybody, if they didn't do anything major, or a rape or a child crime, that they're able to go to the armed forces. They're able to come out and get a job openly. They're able to vote. I mean, I just think there's a lot of things. This is 2020 that there should be different groups getting involved and trying to help revamp the criminal system where if guys aren't out there committing, you know, serious crimes, there should be other things that are going on to help them get released and get back into society and do something positive. Because there's a lot of young guys out there that don't realize the decisions they're making, and they don't get the opportunity for a second chance. They're banging them over the head at 18, 19, 20, and they're coming out at 35, 40, and there's no opportunity for them at that point. And the only thing they do know is to go back on the street because there is no opportunity for them to do anything else. So I'm trying to advocate for that.
And now the feds are taking all the gangs. If you know, that's the new RICO. They're crushing these kids, you know.
Well, you know, I have mixed feelings about some of these gangs because there are kids that get swept up in that life.
I deal with gang kids every day from every aspect of different gangs and groups. And I think if you meet somebody, just like I met some of my enemies, they were my enemies, later on they became friends. If you meet them on a different circumstance and you can get to meet them at the right time and develop their minds in a different way, just the way that we would raise our own children or somebody, if we can get to them soon enough to change their thinking pattern, I think that there isn't really, and I've said this, something else about it makes sense to you and you'll understand. When you grab a kid 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and 6 years old, and you put them in a playground, they don't look at color, they don't look at any kind of religion, they don't look at your clothes, they're innocent. So if we can get them back to that innocence again, through whatever programs that, you know, we can, because people don't start off criminally, people don't start off angry, people don't start off with hatred. You develop it in you know, whatever areas we grow up in.
Right.
I absolutely.
I agree with him 100%. But the thing is, with that organization, they believe in hurting innocent people. The MS-13s, their organization is based off evilness. You know what I'm saying?
Not all of them. Chi-Chi,
Right.
you know,
Yes,
because I mentored a kid that I'm very good friends with till today, and he's in his 30s. He got a chance, and he changed his life around.
Right.
So,
You could
know,
change.
guys going to change their life if they get to the right person.
Right.
Maybe, Barry, you're the guy to get to somebody. Maybe I'm a guy to get to somebody else, or, you know, a chief of police is able to get to somebody, or a gangster or killer that got life sentence gets to them and teaches them something different.
I mean, I don't really have direct involvement in that. I mean, I coached my son in CYO when he was younger. All different, but we're talking about different degrees. But I do have a friend who has devoted his life. He's a former detective who runs an organization called Cops and Kids. And the guy that got it started financially was Teddy Atlas, who I think we discussed, you know him.
Yes.
And Pat Russo, who's the salt of the earth. And here's a man that he was a cop, 25 years, worst Sunset Park, Brooklyn, all the bad spots. But he's devoted his life to doing exactly what you're talking about, John. He takes these kids off the street. He brings them in the gym. He teaches them how to box. But it's not so much about the boxing as it's about discipline.
Discipline and structure. We talk about it all the time.
And then they have programs. These kids, they bring their report card. If they get A's, he gives them $100 out of his pocket. He has, and until COVID came along, they had a lot of sponsors, a lot of professional athletes donating money, people doing things. They would have these amateur boxing tournaments, not with the kids, but with B-list celebrity type guys. They would hold them at the Garden. They'd raise a lot of money. I mean, it all just came to a halt because of COVID. But Pat and his organization, they donate their time, their money, their effort, 24/7 to helping kids. And these kids are kids from the projects.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing. And you know, sometimes these guys, and you said ex-detective. So the same guys that are people talking bad about a lot of these cops, there's so many good ones that are helping young kids and gang members and ex-gang members and guys like ourselves that, you know, saving so many lives, and they don't get the credit that, you know, hopefully that notoriety, just because you mentioned it now, he deserves it. I mean, a guy like that.
I can tell you that organization doesn't look for notoriety.
Well, it's not notoriety for him. It's notoriety for the lives he's saving. And I don't think he cares. He doesn't have the ego to do what he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. So I'm talking about the notoriety for him because of what he's saving these kids, and it helps these kids. The more people that know about him, the more lives he saves.
Absolutely. I mean, he has kids that started down the path, 15 years old, have a push-in robbery, and they get a break, but they have a felony record now. I mean, if it's a juvenile record, you get it sealed. But going back to your point earlier, I mean, you're 18, 19 years old. Things don't go your way. You got a felony record. Yeah, you're screwed. You're never going to get a good job. In the world we live in today with the internet and corporations, your whole background is on the internet, all of us. And that kid is never getting off that dime. So I guess the trick is to get them before they make the big mistake.
And I'm hoping we could change those laws, some of them, and get it expunged once you do your time, or you're off your parole and you get that chance to go back at life again and get a job.
If you're good for 10 years, why can't they remove it? 5 years, just get it off your record if you did the right thing for a certain amount of time, you know?
Well, they do have a mechanism in New York State where you can have your record expunged. I'm not familiar with all the details, but I know that if you have, let's say, a nonviolent felony, you finish your probation, after 5 years, you can make an application.
Right.
The problem is, like everything else, it goes to a judge. And it's in the judge's discretion. You don't always deny it. I mean, you know, we're talking about Queens earlier in this conversation. There were some cool old-time judges in Queens. They're all gone now.
Cool. Cooper, I know.
Tommy DeMakis. Before your time.
They're very strict over there.
Do you remember Murphy?
Queens is very strict.
The lawyer Murphy. He was convicted of murder, and later on he became a lawyer in Queens. Do you remember him at all?
Murray Richmond?
No, Murphy. Yeah, the little guy. Right. He was nuts, but he became a decent lawyer.
You knew my lawyer, Vinny Siccardi? He was a Queens. He was a DA first, then a lawyer. He was good. He's about your age.
But the reason I was bringing up Queens is, to John's point, there were judges back in the day, and I'm going way back, like to the beginning, 84, 85, when I literally started out. They did do alternative sentencing.
Yeah. I remember. That's why I said, why did they take it away? Why not give these guys a chance? I just believe in the military because I'm a big vet guy. I do a lot of shows with the veterans. I just did the I Got You 6 podcast with a Marine, and I just did another one with a Navy SEAL. And I think these guys are big heroes that don't get the recognition they should be getting for the freedoms of the country. But, you know, when you look back at some of these guys, why not give them some structure? Same kids that maybe, you know, didn't grow up in a great household. If you give them a shot at life, you can educate them, you can teach them structure, you can teach them leadership, and you can help them also get into a field, whether it's, you know, schooling or, you know, mechanics or any kind of trade. Because when they come out of the forces, they're back on the street in a good way, not in a bad way. I just believe that they should never got rid of that program. Maybe it could come back again.
You know what? Worth pursuing, because I think there is, you know, not to get too political about this, but it really got bad after when Clinton signed the 1994 Safe Streets Act.
We were just talking about that, me and my friend over here. Okay, yeah. Okay.
And that's, that's when you started seeing like a 16-year-old kid that might have sold a couple vials of crack get 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Oh, I seen it. I seen it personally. I was going in with a shooting case. I'm getting less time than guys with drug charges. I know. Believe me.
And that's something that has to be rolled back. I mean, I think the government, was it in 18 or 19? During the Trump administration, they came out with the First Step Act.
Right, they did.
But the problem with the First Step Act is it's not a diversion. It's after you're already incarcerated.
Right.
So they're rolling back the sentence if you qualify. But you're still going through the process. You still have to go off and be incarcerated, and you're still marked with a felony. But they are trying, and the problem with the First Step Act is every serial killer in the country who has a cough or a hernia now wants to get out from his 50-year sentence thinking he's entitled to it. So they are filing massive amounts of petitions in the courts, and they're all being denied. And the purpose of that act is probably for the guy that sold 200 pounds of pot when he was 25, when they were giving you a life sentence for pot at one point.
It's crazy. You're right. In Colorado, they were doing that. A certain state, you were getting natural life or big time for weed.
Matarano got it.
Yeah, that's
in
insane.
Philly. You know that case?
Philly,
he just came home. They gave him 25 or 30 years, and a lot of it had to do with his father. You know, they tried to bang him around because his father, he really was a regular guy, and he did all kinds of time, and he just came home. So,
well, I'll tell you.
Can you imagine that life for weed?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'll give you guys a story that on one of my cases many years ago in Texas. I used to have a group of clients. They're college kids, actually. They're all college kids, and they're in the weed business. Not, back in the day. And what they would do is they would literally go to Mexico before the cartels got into the weed business, and they'd buy a crop. And it would come back through Texas, and it would work its way to Denver, Philadelphia, New York, Long Island, different places. So I get a call one day, 22-year-old college kid from Long Island gets stopped by a sheriff outside of, it wasn't Dallas, but it was one of those Okefenokee towns like 40, 50 miles away. He's in a U-Haul truck. He's got 400 pounds of marijuana in it.
You're not talking about Greg Ryder, are you?
No,
okay.
No.
Because he passed away, but I know he got caught down there.
Yeah. No. This was somebody that you would know. I'm telling the furthest removed from OC you could imagine.
Oh, okay.
The guy also had like a 3.8 cube in college, but he liked money. So he gets popped. The family hires me. I bring in a local counsel out of Fort Worth, and I go down there. Opening line, 25 to life.
Oh, my God.
And by the way, the kid is just a transporter. He's not making all the money.
Right.
So it's a no-go. I get in there. Prosecutor turned out not to be a bad guy. The judge had it in for me. He kept calling me Mr. Levin. We're not used to New York lawyers coming down here. I go, where's Levin? My name's Levin, Judge.
Maybe you heard me.
The undercurrent was I'm a Jew bastard with a law degree, and hey, that's what was really going on.
Hey, didn't they change that Mullen law where the guys just trafficking the drugs don't get big sentences anymore? They get like 6, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, but keep in mind, I'm not even talking about a federal case. They made this a state case. This was a state case in Texas. So my guy's sitting cooling his heels. He did about 6, 7 months, and they can't break me. And I'm, out of my mind. I'm filing motions to controvert the stop, that it's a pretext, the truck was within the speed limit. I think I'm in law school. I'm writing all these briefs. My lawyer, he recently died. His name was Rich Solomon, cool dude. Talk about a vet. He was a paratrooper, and he was also in Vietnam. Coolest guy I ever met in my life. And he goes, my name is Jewish, but I'm a Texan. He goes, you're a Jew from New York. Let me do the talking. But we wore them down. And after 6, 7 months of literally getting this judge to do nothing, we'd file motions, he wouldn't rule on them. He turned to the prosecutor, well, can you come down a little bit? So they thought they were doing us a favor. It got to the point where they wanted 10 years from my kid. I wouldn't do any of it. I said, no, Judge, we're going to trial. Going to trial. And I want you to rule in the motions. If you're not going to rule in the motions, then I was inquiring how you take an interlocutory appeal to the circuit down there and make this judge rule on the suppression. He wouldn't rule on anything. True story. One day I'm down there. It's my 5th or 6th trip. He looks at me and goes, approach. He has the prosecutor come up, Solomon like he goes, I'm really sick of this damn case. Let's go to lunch. I'm like, okay, go to lunch. And this is like 89 or 90. Takes us to his country club. He's shit-faced within 30 minutes. He has 3 or 4 gin and tonics. The prosecutor is looking at me. He goes, you think I should have a beer? I go, have a case. What do I care?
Yeah, right.
We walked out of there with time served.
Wow. So crazy.
Wow.
Now that was Texas justice.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Barry, we got to wrap it up. I got to tell you, it was great having you on.
Definitely,
I'd love to have you back again. And is there any contacts if people are interested in hiring you or anything, the way they can get a hold of you? And
yeah, I mean, now, you know, I didn't come on. Yeah, my phone number, 516-222-4500 is the office. And I'm all over the internet. I mean, if you just Google my name, my office comes up. Some of the stories we talked about, it's all out there.
Well, they're going to definitely Google you for sure now.
Yeah, they're going to be looking you up.
It was really interesting. It was great having you. I knew it would be great having you.
Yeah, it was.
And anybody that's interested in hiring you, honestly, I could personally
After that
speak
Texas
about
story, they're going to watch it, definitely.
It's 30 years ago.
It was really great
Hey, look,
having you.
it was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Yeah.
And absolutely, you know, if I can help you, John, with some motivational stuff for kids, count me in.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right.
And the best
Take
to you
care,
and your
guys.
family.
Take care, buddy. All right.
Pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.